Chosen one. There is a reason you are here, and it has nothing to do with coincidence. This moment was arranged long before you clicked play. Something within you sensed it, that quiet pull, that unexplainable knowing, as if heaven itself leaned in and whispered your name. You've been carrying questions you never speak out loud, wounds you've learned to survive with, and a calling that refuses to let you live small. You didn't stumble into this message. This message found you. And chosen one, before we go deeper, pause for a moment, breathe this in. If your spirit already feels stirred, go ahead and hit subscribe and comment ready below. Not as a habit, but as a signal. Because what's about to unfold is not general inspiration, it's a word meant to meet you where you are right now. You've walked through seasons where nothing made sense. Doors closed without explanation, paths shifted without warning. You prayed for clarity, but heaven answered with silence. And in that silence, you wondered if you misheard God, or worse, if you were forgotten. But what you couldn't see then is what you're beginning to feel now. You were never abandoned. You were being investigated by destiny, watched over, preserved, chosen one. The battles you survived weren't random. The confusion wasn't failure. The isolation wasn't punishment. You were being separated so you could be shaped. While others rushed forward, you were slowed down. While others arrived early, you were held back. Not because you lacked favor, but because you carried too much of it to arrive unprepared. There is a reason your life has unfolded the way it has. A reason certain connections fell apart. A reason the timing never matched your expectations. God said no, not to hurt you, but to protect what was forming inside you. And now something is shifting. The fog is thinning. The weight is lifting. The silence is beginning to speak. Chosen one. The straight path wasn't safe for you. It would have demanded speed over wisdom, arrival over integrity. So you were detoured, not delayed, to keep you whole. Stay with me. A hidden truth is about to be revealed. Chosen one, let's begin here, with the path you thought you were supposed to take. The straight one, the obvious one, the one everyone around you said made sense. From the outside, it looked faster, cleaner, easier to explain. No detours, no delays, just progress, milestones, and arrival. But deep in your spirit, something never felt settled about it, did it? Because the truth is this, that straight path would have cost you your soul. Not all open roads are safe roads. Some paths are straight, not because they are right, but because they are demanding speed over wisdom. They reward movement, not meaning. They ask you to arrive quickly, even if you arrive hollow. And chosen one, your soul was never built for shortcuts that require compromise. Think about it. How many times were you tempted to move faster by lowering your standards? To stay quiet when your spirit wanted to speak? To accept things that looked like opportunity but felt like erosion? That path would have applauded your success while slowly draining your peace. It would have celebrated your arrival while disconnecting you from who you really are. And God saw that. You may not have understood why certain doors closed, why momentum suddenly slowed, or why what looked perfect on paper never came together. But heaven understood something you couldn't see yet. That path would have required you to trade alignment for approval, integrity for access, depth for speed. And chosen one, anything that demands your soul as payment is never truly success. Ask yourself, would you really have been at peace there? Would you have slept well at night knowing you arrived faster, but lost yourself along the way? Or would the applause have faded, leaving you spiritually exhausted, wondering how you drifted so far from your center? God didn't block that path to frustrate you. He blocked it to protect what makes you you, your discernment, your sensitivity, your moral clarity, your ability to hear Him without distortion. Because once those are compromised, recovery takes far longer than any delay ever would. The straight path would have shaped you into something impressive, but not something true. And you were never called to be impressive. You were called to be aligned. So when God said no, it wasn't rejection, it was preservation. It was heaven stepping in and saying, this road may get you there faster, but it will not get you there whole. And chosen one, what good is arrival if your soul doesn't arrive with you? Stay with me, Because once you understand why that path was dangerous, you'll begin to see why the detour was sacred. Chosen one, there is a reason your life slowed down when you were ready to run. A reason momentum disappeared just as you thought you were finally gaining ground. To the mind, it felt like resistance. To the spirit, it felt confusing. But from heaven's perspective, it was intentional. God didn't remove speed to punish you. He removed it so wisdom could form. Speed has a way of skipping what matters most. When everything moves fast, there's no space to reflect, no time to discern, no margin to listen. You may reach the destination quickly, but you arrive without understanding how you got there or why you're there at all. In Chosen One, what God is preparing you to carry next cannot be sustained by impulse or urgency. It requires depth. It requires maturity. It requires a kind of wisdom that can only be developed in seasons where nothing rushes you forward. Think back to the moments when life forced you to slow down, when plans stalled, when answers didn't come, when waiting became unavoidable. Those seasons were uncomfortable, weren't they? Silence has weight. Stillness exposes what movement hides. But ask yourself, who did you become in that slowing? What did you begin to see more clearly? What patterns did you finally notice once the noise settled? God understands something we often forget. Speed builds momentum, but wisdom builds longevity. You were being taught how to respond instead of react, how to observe instead of chase, how to hear God's voice without the interference of constant motion. The delay trained your discernment. It sharpened your patience. It taught you how to remain steady when nothing is happening. A skill that will matter deeply when everything is happening at once. Chosen one, imagine if God had allowed you to move faster without this formation. You might have arrived with excitement, but no stability, with vision, but no grounding, with authority, but no restraint. Would that version of you have been ready? Or would speed have carried you into responsibility before wisdom could anchor you? God slowed you down because He cares about who you become, not just where you go. He values your inner foundation more than your external progress. And while it felt like time was being taken from you, heaven was actually investing in you, shaping your character to match your calling. So if you ever wondered why your journey felt slower than others, why things unfolded in stages instead of leaps, this is why. You weren't being held back. You were being prepared. Ask yourself now, can you see the wisdom you carry today that you didn't have before the slowdown? Can you sense how grounded you've become, how differently you move, how clearly you discern? Chosen one, when speed was removed, wisdom was planted. And soon, when movement returns, you won't just move fast, you'll move rightly. Stay with me. The deeper purpose of this preparation is about to become even clearer. Chosen one, there is a difference between being delayed and being protected. And for a long time, it was hard to tell which one you were experiencing. From where you stood, it felt like life kept slowing you down. Opportunities slipped past. Timelines stretched. Progress felt uneven. And quietly, a question began to form in your heart. Why am I still here when I was ready to move forward? But heaven saw something you couldn't. You weren't being held back. You were being shielded. There are outcomes that look successful on the surface, but carry consequences beneath them. Paths that appear open yet lead into environments you weren't meant to survive. People who seem aligned in the moment but would later drain your spirit, distort your identity, or derail your calling. And because you couldn't yet see those endings, God stepped in before you arrived there. Think about it. How many times did something fall apart that you were certain was right? A plan you prayed for, a door you pushed toward, a connection you believed was meant to last. At the time, the loss felt sharp, confusing, even unfair. But looking back now, can you sense what you were spared from? The stress you didn't have to endure, the compromise you didn't have to make, the version of yourself you didn't have to become. Divine protection rarely feels gentle in the moment. It often feels like resistance, like interruption, like unanswered prayers. But God doesn't always protect by removing danger after it appears. Sometimes He protects by preventing access altogether. He closes doors you were ready to walk through because He knows what would have met you on the other side. Chosen one, imagine if you had arrived earlier, before your discernment matured, before your boundaries strengthened, before your spirit learned how to remain anchored under pressure. Would you have recognized the warning signs? Would you have had the strength to walk away if needed? Or would success have trapped you in something costly? God delayed you because arriving too soon would have exposed you to outcomes you weren't yet equipped to handle. The waiting wasn't absence, it was coverage. A shield around your peace, a barrier around your purpose, a quiet hand redirecting you away from harm you didn't know existed. Ask yourself, what if the delay wasn't about timing at all, but about safety? What if the unanswered prayer was actually a prayer answered in a form you didn't expect? What if the closed door was the most loving response heaven could give? Chosen one, protection doesn't always look like blessing. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like disappointment. Sometimes it looks like watching others move ahead while you remain where you are. But staying put kept you intact. It kept your spirit clean. It kept your calling untouched. And now as you stand here, wiser and more aware, you're beginning to understand. God wasn't slow. He was careful with you. You were never delayed without purpose. You were protected with precision. Stay with me, because once you see what you were shielded from, you'll begin to recognize how intentional every step of your journey has been. Chosen one, let's talk about the silence, not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind, the kind that followed your prayers, the kind that lingered after you asked for direction, clarity, reassurance, the kind that made you wonder if heaven had gone quiet just when you needed it most. That silence was one of the hardest seasons to endure, wasn't it? Because when God is silent, the mind fills in the gaps. Doubt creeps in. Fear begins to speak louder. You replay conversations with God and ask yourself where you went wrong. Did I miss something? Did I mishear him? Did he move on? But chosen one, hear this clearly now. Silence was never abandonment. It was guidance in a deeper form. God didn't explain every step because explanation too early would have weakened your trust. If he had laid out every detail, every turn, every outcome, you would have relied on information instead of relationship. You would have followed instructions instead of learning how to follow his presence. And what God is building in you cannot be sustained by certainty alone. It requires faith that knows how to walk without sight. Think about it. How often did you ask for answers, only to receive stillness instead? How often did you beg for confirmation, only to feel held in quiet restraint? That silence wasn't empty, it was intentional. God was teaching you how to listen beneath the noise, how to discern without constant reassurance, how to trust his character when his voice felt distant. Silence reveals what constant guidance can hide. It exposes what you truly believe about God when he is not actively speaking. Do you trust him only when he explains himself? Or can you trust him when he simply asks you to stay close? This season was not about direction. It was about devotion, about learning to remain aligned even when clarity was delayed. Chosen one, consider this. If God had explained every step, would you have learned to lean on him or only on the plan? Would your faith have deepened or stayed dependent on visible proof? Sometimes God withholds explanation, not because he is distant, but because he is near, close enough to guide you moment by moment, breath by breath. The silence strengthened your spiritual muscles. It taught you patience. It refined your discernment. It forced you to slow down and become attentive to subtle shifts instead of loud signs. You learned to sense his leading rather than demand his reasoning. And that kind of faith is rare. That kind of trust is powerful. Ask yourself now, who did you become in the quiet? What fears surfaced that you had to confront? What inner noise finally settled? What deeper awareness began to grow? You may not have realized it then, but silence was shaping you into someone who can walk confidently even when the path isn't fully lit. Chosen one, God was never absent in the silence. He was close, teaching you how to trust without needing to see, how to stay aligned without constant confirmation, how to follow him not just for answers, but for who he is. And now as clarity begins to return, you can see it. The silence didn't break you. It built you. Stay with me, because understanding this changes how you interpret every quiet season ahead. Chosen one, this is where many hearts misunderstand the season they walk through. Because when things slow down, when plans fall apart, when progress feels restrained, the mind often reaches for one explanation. I must be being corrected. You may have quietly wondered if you were paying for past mistakes, being disciplined for something unseen, or held back because you failed some spiritual test. But hear this clearly now. Nothing about this season was punishment. You were preserved. Punishment breaks. Preservation protects. And God's hand over your life in this season was never about tearing you down. It was about keeping you intact, keeping your heart soft in a world that hardens people, keeping your spirit sensitive when pressure tries to numb it, keeping your identity anchored while circumstances tried to shake it loose. Think about what you were walking through, the emotional weight, the uncertainty, the temptation to give up or give in. If this had been punishment, it would have crushed you. It would have left you bitter, hardened, disconnected. But instead, something else happened. You endured, you reflected, you grew quieter but deeper. You may have felt tired, but you didn't lose yourself. That is not correction, that is preservation. God knew what prolonged exposure to certain environments, relationships, or expectations would do to you. He knew the cost it would take on your peace, your joy, your discernment, and rather than letting you be slowly worn down, He pulled you aside. Not to scold you, but to cover you. Not to isolate you, but to restore you. Sometimes God removes you from the battlefield not because you are weak, but because you are valuable. Ask yourself, did this season truly damage you? Or did it protect something fragile and sacred within you? Did it strip you of who you are? Or did it quietly guard your core while everything else was being rearranged? You may not have seen it then, but heaven was watching over the parts of you that couldn't afford to be broken. Chosen one, punishment comes with shame. Preservation comes with peace, even if that peace arrives slowly. Correction brings condemnation. Preservation brings clarity over time. And the fact that you are still here, still listening, still open, still searching for meaning, that is evidence you are never being punished. You are being held. God preserved your faith when it could have collapsed. He preserved your heart when disappointment could have hardened it. He preserved your calling by shielding it from premature exposure. Some things must be protected before they are revealed. Some people must be kept hidden before they are trusted with visibility. So release the idea that this season was about fixing you. You were never broken. You were being kept whole, guarded until the right moment, strengthened quietly, prepared gently. Chosen one, preservation doesn't always feel comforting while it's happening. Sometimes it feels lonely. Sometimes it feels restrictive. But now as you look back, you can see it. God wasn't correcting you. He was covering you. And soon when you step into what's next, you'll realize how necessary it was that you arrived not just successful, but whole. Stay with me, because understanding this will change how you view everything you survived. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every journey when the waiting, the detours, the silence, and the preparation all converge. You may not see it coming. It rarely arrives with fanfare or warning. In fact, it usually comes quietly, almost imperceptibly. One day, the weight you've been carrying begins to feel lighter. One day, the pieces that were scattered start to fit. One day, the doors that were long closed begin to open. And suddenly, nothing is the same. Have you felt it? That subtle shift in energy, like the air itself is charged with possibility. That moment when the heaviness that once pressed down on your shoulders lifts, not because the world has changed, but because something inside you has aligned. It is in that instant that you realize every delay, every detour, every season of silence was working together to bring you here. And chosen one, that moment is sacred, prophetic, and divinely orchestrated. Sometimes these shifts are invisible at first. They do not scream. They do not demand attention. They whisper. They emerge as a quiet understanding, a sudden clarity, a vision that had been hidden behind the fog of your struggles. Have you ever experienced a time when you felt ready for change, only for it to arrive not with your timing, but with God's. That is how divinely timed shifts always work. They bypass your expectations, revealing that what you thought you needed was never the full picture. And here is the truth. Detours end quietly, but their impact is profound. You may look back and see that every unexpected turn, every closed door, every delay was actually the scaffolding for this very moment. The skills you learned, the patience you cultivated, the discernment you developed, they all converge silently to prepare you for a revelation you cannot yet fully describe. Do you see how intentional this is? How carefully orchestrated every pause and every step has been by heaven itself? The moment everything shifts is also deeply validating. It confirms that your faith was never wasted, your endurance was never overlooked, and your integrity was never compromised. The person you have become in the quiet, in the waiting, in the preparation, this is the one equipped to walk boldly into what's next. Have you noticed how some things feel suddenly easier, clearer, and more aligned than they ever have before? That is the evidence of divine timing in motion. Chosen one, this is not just a change in circumstances, it is a transformation of perspective. It is the revelation that what once felt like frustration, confusion, or loss was in fact shaping you into someone who could handle what is coming. Suddenly, opportunities, insights, and breakthroughs begin to emerge simultaneously. Suddenly, relationships, doors, and visions fall into place with precision. Suddenly, you recognize that the season of preparation was never wasted. And so, as you stand on the cusp of this shift, take a deep breath and allow yourself to feel the weight of what has been preserved, prepared, and protected within you. This is the moment where patience meets reward, silence meets clarity, delay meets destiny. In Chosen One, ask yourself, are you ready to step forward into this new rhythm, fully aware that everything you've endured has led to this divine alignment? Because when detours end, they do not just conclude, they transform. And Chosen One, you are about to witness that transformation in a way that changes everything.